Good afternoon. I will give it just a minute here to get everyone into the webinar and then we will begin. Right. Looks like pretty steady now. So I will get started. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Treaty 7 nations, the Piikani, Siksika, Kaana, Stoney Nakoda, and Tsuut'ina First Nations. We acknowledge the ancestral territory of the Siksika Sitapi, the Blackfoot Confederacy, the home of Métis Region Number 3. We are recording today's webinar and will make it available following today's session. We encourage you to share the content provided today with anyone who may benefit. And with that, we will get started. While I introduce myself, I will start a poll so we can find out a little bit more about who we have on the call. And I will ask if you have a question, you can enter it right into the Q&A or send us a message. I see someone has their hand raised. I'm not sure if you're having a technical difficulty. Oh, a few hands raised. I don't know if you can send a message or put it in the Q&A to let us know if there's a problem happening or if you're just confirming that you can hear. Don't see anything, so I'm going to keep going here. So as I start our poll, chat is not activated. Okay, so you will just have to type in your questions in the questions and answer if that works for you. If you have any problems, please do raise your hand and I will acknowledge them. The poll here I am launching. So I am Brianna O'Reilly. I'm the program manager with PetroLMI, the Division of Energy Safety Canada. PetroLMI is your source for labor market information and trends in Canada's energy industry and is funded in part by the Government of Canada's Sectoral Initiatives Program. However, opinions expressed here are our own and do not necessarily reflect those of the Government of Canada. So I'm going to take a moment to take a look at who we have here on the call. So it looks like we have a few people from energy companies, quite a few job seekers, some not-for-profit, and some other. So I hope you'll find today's session valuable. I'm going to take a few moments to show you a new feature we launched on our Careers in Oil and Gas website for career change information. And then I'll be passing it over to Richard Bucher. So, share my screen here so I can walk you through this new feature. So we have careersinoilandgas.com/career changes, and this site is all about how to change your career. So we have some information and research that we've conducted here about what a career transition looks like. We've taken the time to talk to people about what their transitions have looked like and share their stories here through YouTube videos. And we are recording a series of 4 or 5 podcasts in the next couple weeks that we will be launching as well. As you scroll down the page, we have the top 5 frequently asked questions about career transitions. So we're sharing information about where we're seeing the most growth, what industries are easiest to transition to, what are the top in-demand skills that employers are looking for right now, how do you go about assessing your transferability to other sectors, and how do you assess your transferability to other occupations. And each of these sections does drop down and let you take a look at what that content might look like. And as you continue to scroll down, you'll see more content from people who have made transitions. And then if you're ready to make a change, here are some more in-depth resources. So we have a full website with a resource that allows you to access your and takes a look at what Oh, we may have lost Richard. Sorry about that. Takes a look at where you may be most transferable to and what sort of emerging occupations and emerging industries are growing. And then, as I said, we are doing a series of podcasts as well as day in the life profiles on people about how they're shifting their energy careers into other sectors and what that might look like. I don't know if anyone has any questions on this new tool, or if you guys want to take a chance to spend some time reading through it. I will send out the URL as part of the end of today's session. And let me just stop sharing here and see if I can get Richard back. That would
Sorry, I just had a tech issue.
Okay.
And yeah, it was, sorry. I just got a new modem and I'm not sure it's situated in the right place. So I changed my location.
Oh, okay. So I will take a moment here to introduce Richard. Richard Bucher has over 30 years of experience in the world of career transitions as an executive coach, senior career management, and career transition professional, speaker, and the Get a Job Guy columnist on CBC Calgary's Eye Opener. Author of Your Path to Purpose, Richard is skilled at guiding clients to their goals with his extensive experience in leadership coaching, career transition, and career management. Richard, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Brianne. It's really great to be here. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. As you saw, as I was getting myself set up, no, I'm not actually on the coast, although I'd happily be here. Just before we went live, Brianne and I were talking about some of the harsh numbers that are occurring in the midst of the population of folks that are being impacted. I think, well, lots of people are being impacted by COVID, of course, but impacted by the downturn and what's been happening in the energy sector. And the numbers aren't good. The number of people impacted are in the hundreds of thousands. The financial impact of the province, massive. And the prospect of changing can be very unsettling. Certainly moving away from what has been known and familiar, perhaps for the bulk of your career, if not your whole career so far, is more than a little unsettling. And so hopefully we can talk a bit about that today and talk about what are some ways that you can kind of build a plus 15 from wherever you happen to be to wherever the work's going to be. And actually, if you hang on to that concept of a plus 15, it's not a bad one. You know, if you read the story about where plus 15s originated and why we built them, certainly one of the reasons was in the winters, you may have known, it's not uncommon for it to be minus 475 out downtown. And so not having to walk out on the street is good. But, you know, frankly, sometimes in the midst of our career, we're in the harshest of circumstances and environments where nothing about the transition is friendly, familiar, or easy. And so in that respect, what do we do about it? Well, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the fundamentals today. So I'm just going to share my screen with you here and bring up a PowerPoint for you to look at. And I'm sure you were all thinking, oh gosh, I was hoping there'd be a PowerPoint. So there you go. Yay. I'm going to invite, certainly put your questions in the chat bar if you have some as we go through. I'm going to make mention to content as we go through this. If any of this is resonating with you and you'd like a copy, I'm more than happy to share it with you. I'll tell you right now, I host a weekly networking event called TeamNet YYC. And it's for anyone who's in a career transition or thinking they may be in a career transition and would like to connect with people who are in a similar circumstance, trying to make a transition into something, whatever next might look like. Some of the people are looking to continue their career on the path that it's on. Others are wanting or needing to change their trajectory completely. There's no cost for this. It happens Thursday mornings from 9 till 10:30. It's a really wholesome team. It's a cross-functional team that come from different backgrounds, you would be welcome to join us. There's no prep that's required. The only thing really you need to know about it is that you're welcome to attend. Okay, so I'm going to talk about today the fundamentals that are involved in taking yourself from wherever you are into your next job. You no doubt know, if you've been looking for work for a while, that the strategies that you may have used before, the kind of resume that you may have prepared and used in the past, and type of cover letters you may have used in the past, and your approach to applying for positions that you've used in the past isn't generating the results that you want or need in this transition. And for whatever that may be worth, you're in really good company. I do a lot of public speaking, and very commonly in my audiences are people who are in that very same circumstance. And everything they're trying to do isn't working. It's not generating the results that they need or want. And they frankly don't know what else to do or where else to go. And so we're gonna talk about this. Suffice it to say, same old doesn't work. So I've built this content over the course of 30 plus years of doing this work called 5 Pillars of Sustainable Career Mastery. And this is going to be a very high level overview, an introduction to it. And again, I have more information on each of the 5 pillars. If you want to dive into any of this stuff deeper, reach out to me. You can see me on LinkedIn. Brianne has my contact info. Feel free to reach out. So the 5 pillars are simply this. First, identifying your purpose. I call it purpose on wheels. Knowing your purpose is part of the equation for sure, but you knowing your purpose and $50 will buy you breakfast. If you don't know how to actualize it, how to actually put it into work in your career, it's not necessarily going to be helpful. In fact, it could be a real frustration. Our messaging that we use with others as we're talking about ourselves, where we are, where we've been, what we're doing, where we're going, is another piece that's really central to this. And we need to think about it ahead of time. We can't afford to show up to conversations and just sort of make it up in real time. Building your narrative is a piece that I actually have a document that I'll walk you through today about actually how to do this. And I'm happy to share that with you as well, if you'd like. But this is a different way of talking about yourself from the way that most people are doing it now. We're going to dig into that a bit. And then we'll talk a little bit about campaign strategy and execution. And then the critical piece, once you've landed, then what do you do? Because your work doesn't end there. In fact, a whole new level of work begins at that level. So first, talking about purpose. Well, fundamentally, getting solid on this is a critical piece to success when you need to make a career change. Because making a career change, well, it does have something to do with what's out there, where opportunities reside. And you'll find that Petrol LMI has fantastic information to guide you in where you might look. Calgary Economic Development has fantastic information to support you in that respect. Invest Alberta has incredible information to share with you. And there's many other resources. But before you get into that, what lens will you look through to discern where your innate abilities, your innate giftedness aligns with where the opportunity resides? For example, if I want to be a full stack developer, which if any of you know what that is, you probably know it's comical for me to say it that way. I don't have language to describe how little I know about that, but let's just say that's something that I wanted to do. I've never done it before. Don't know anything about it, and then just go out and get training in it and then try and find a job. Unless somebody's actively helping me and putting me in a job, I'm not likely to be very successful, or I'm likely to have a tough time. So I need to connect all of this to who I innately am. So when we peel away, the professional designations that you might have, when we open up and unpack the experience that you've built and acquired over the course of your career, in all of that resides your innate giftedness. And your success, part of that plus 15 that we need to build that we talked about a minute ago, is going to come directly from that. So what am I talking about? Well, your innate giftedness shows up in the things that you really enjoy doing. And yes, I am referring to in a work context or in a context that can be commercialized. These are often activities that you're engaged in where you lose track of time. You just have no sense of time whatsoever. They commonly come really easily to you. Now, you lose track of time doing them, and they come easily to you for a reason. It's like a signpost saying, walk this way. Now, you may say, well, that was it. I'm a chemical engineer. That is what I lose track of time when I'm doing. And I love doing that. Fantastic. In the oil and gas sector, not that that's not possible, but you're going to need other options in addition to that, because presumably landing a job is one of the things you have to do, and landing in it within a certain period of time is something else that has to happen. As you get clear on this, the next thing you do is you need to actually name it. And the saying I have, which is, if you can name it, you can claim it. If you can say clearly to the listener what it is you're looking for, you create the circumstances under which you can actually find it. But until you name it, you cannot claim it. I have clients sometimes say to me, well, Richard, I don't want to name any one specific thing because I don't want to limit my options. I'm really open to possibilities. That thinking, by the way, is the best way I know of staying unemployed for a period of time beyond your wildest imaginings and worst fears. Naming options does not limit options, it creates them. It makes them real. Until you're ready to say what roles you're considering, they don't even exist, and no one can help you. I want to keep my options open is not a target. The second pillar gets into, excuse me, the second pillar gets into emotion. So you may have noticed, if for any of you that have been through a forced transition or unplanned career transition or layoff, you may recall the emotions that you felt at the time when your job went away. I've likened it to coming home at the end of the day and finding your clothes on the front lawn. Not a pleasant experience. And so certainly processing that is important, coming to terms with it. I don't know that you'll ever be okay with it, but coming to terms with it, making peace with it is an important step in this process. But aligned with that then comes the messaging of how you explain it. So you need to be prepared if you've been transitioned out of a company, and that doesn't matter whether that was, with the Husky Group a few weeks ago or 2 or 3 years ago. You need to be able to answer in a manner that is authentic, genuine, truthful, positive, and brief. Why did you leave? And you cannot say, well, I didn't leave, they left me. Or I don't know, ask my former boss. You cannot say either of those things, much as you might like to. You can say them to me, but you can't say them to a potential employer if you'd like to work. You need to also be able to explain, why haven't you landed yet? Now, here's a really insidious thing about making a career change, particularly when there's a gap of unemployment in the middle. Employers who have not been transitioned out of a job, haven't been laid off, don't really have an appreciation of what it's like to lose a job. Some do, but many don't. And so they don't really understand how someone with credentials, like some of you that are on this call today, could be in a circumstance where you lost your job. Like how does that make sense? I mean, look at your degree and your credentials, your professional development, your experience. How does that make sense? And then if you add to that an extended period of unemployment, and what is that? In practical terms, anything less than 6 months I would characterize is no big deal. Now, if you're in those 6 months, it is a big deal for sure. But I mean, from the employer's perspective, they wouldn't be fussed about that. It's when it starts getting north of that. So now you're getting into 10 months, 12 months, 18 months or longer. And I have folks that I'm working with that have been out for 5 years. People don't understand how someone could be looking for work for an extended period of time and not land a job. So you need to explain, why haven't you landed yet? If you have questions about any of this stuff, by the way, we can try and answer some of them today. And if it's a more in-depth question, you and I will find some time offline to talk about it. And then the other question is, what have you been doing since you've been off? Because employers also struggle understanding how someone could be looking for work for fill in the blank amount of time and not land a job. So what else have you been doing? Now, if you're thinking, well, the only thing I'm doing is looking for work, that's all I'm doing, I'm spending 100% of my time doing that. Excuse me, you need to stop. You're not going to be effective by working 7 days a week, 10, 12 hours a day trying to find a job. So stop doing it. It's not helping you. And more importantly, you need to start doing something else. And that something else probably has something to do with volunteering, giving something back, some of that time you have available to some other cause, which will allow you to meet other real life people, do something that feeds your soul and helps somebody else at the same time. I think for today's conversation, I'm going to defer emotions at work because that has more to do with once you've landed, and I may touch on that right at the end. So, but we'll set that aside for the moment. And this other piece of explicit and implicit relates to the kinds of conversations we often have with the leaders we report to. The leaders thinking that what they're asking you to do is common sense, and we often feel like, I don't really know what you're asking me to do, so I'm going to guess and hope that it works out okay. But the real takeaway for you is if you're in transition and thinking of a career change, look at that second bullet, messaging and its component parts, and make sure that you have solid responses to each of those questions. And again, if you have some concerns about it, then let's talk about it. Okay, the third pillar then is building a narrative. I've had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with recruiters over the course of my career, and in 2018 spent a year working with one, an executive recruiter. And a common question for the recruiter was when this person came in to sit down in the boardroom, and the recruiter says, well, walk me through your resume. And commonly what I experienced as I listened to this was that the respondents, I think the only way to frame it is that they just flat out suck at walking people through the resume. Because it's not a question that a lot of people think about. And therefore it's somewhat of it's a little bit trying to follow a border collie through the woods. It's sort of this meandering kind of conversation that touches on things that occur to you in real time. It's often not a question that the person has thought about or anticipated asking. Now, I will tell you, by the way, walk me through your resume is the kind of question that it's more likely a recruiter will ask you, and it's less likely that a hiring manager will ask you. So that's probably good news. But for example, the networking event, TeamNet YYC, that I hosted this morning, I have everybody introduce themselves at the start, so we all get to know each other and get to know what everybody's looking for. Commonly what you hear is I'm a professional engineer and a certified project manager. I have 25, 35, 15, 18, 12 years experience in doing this kind of project and that kind of project. I've done this, I've done that, I've worked here, I've worked there, I've got this, I've got that. That's pretty common for what I hear. And in some respects, it comes across to the reader as, here's what I got, see anything you like? And if you don't, then let me know, because there's more. There's lots more stuff that I have, many more projects that I've worked on that I could tell you about. I could tell you how long I worked there. I could tell you how much they cost. I could tell you who else was there. I could tell you about my job responsibilities and get into all kinds of detail about that. And unfortunately, none of that is particularly helpful. And especially so when you're trying to change careers and you're moving into a market where, frankly, let's admit it, right now, there's way more competition than there is work. So there's more people competing for the jobs than there are jobs to compete for. So it's not surprising that we're going to see 300, 400, 500 applicants for any position that we might be competing for. So we need to be thinking about our marketing collateral. So a resume that describes, for example, what anyone with that job title would do isn't going to be real helpful. I had a conversation with a client last week, and we're walking through his resume. I don't remember his title, but so we'll say it was project management. And beneath the job title project management, he had a series of bullet points that listed all the accountabilities that he had as project manager for that company. So it was a series of 1 or 2 words bulleted, each of them ending with ing. So planning, RACI document, whatever. I mean, anyone that's a project manager knows what would be listed there. So I asked him the question, who would you report to in your next job? And he said, well, probably senior project manager or manager of projects. I said, okay. Do you suppose it would be, or would it be fair to say that the person that you would report to in your next job, having read your most recent job title, would know exactly what you did? And he said, well, maybe. I mean, he'd know what a project manager does, but he wouldn't necessarily know everything that I did. And I said, okay, fair enough. We all have unique responsibilities that are unique to us because of how we show up at work. But, you know, when I have career coach or executive leadership coach or author, frankly, people don't usually say, well, what's that? You know, unless they've never heard of those titles before. So what I'm saying to you is, we need to have marketing collateral that speaks about you, not the job you had, but you in the job. And there's a very, very, very important difference. You had an impact in every role you've ever had, and you need to be able to speak to it. The fact that you've acquired so many years' experience in various roles in companies and sectors, in the grand scheme of things, puts you in the middle of a pack of a bunch of other people who've done exactly the same thing for just about as long with the same kind of training. If you think you can compete with that kind of a document, you cannot. It isn't going to work. It's not up to the task. If you prove me wrong and you land a job, then please come back to me and say, you don't know what you're talking about. I landed a job, and I'm honest to God, I'll be thrilled for you. But I'm just sharing with you what I've seen. We need documentation that talks more about the impact that we've been having. We need to be talking about our capability rather than our skills. And so what's the difference? Commonly, skills, hard skills, need a particular context to be relevant. So forgive this example because it may be oversimplified, but let's just say we're looking at a geologist, and one of the bullet points on the resume is responsible for analyzing well logs. And if you don't know what a well log is, then ask a geologist what it is and they can explain it much better than I. But we could agree, all of us on this call, that well log analysis is a fairly unique skill. You don't see it everywhere. You see it in oil and gas. You know, when they're drilling down hole and they pull out, you know, what the core of the well and stuff that goes in the pipe, and they take it out and they analyze it and see what's in there because that tells them what's down hole. Mining would be the same. Maybe if they're drilling for water, they may do the same thing. But that I think those are the only places where you're going to see that. So where outside of oil and gas would you use that? Well, I don't think you would, to be honest. Well, as I learned from several geologists that I've worked with over the course of my career, there's all kinds of data that's produced in the process of analyzing well logs. And the data could be characterized as complex data. And complex data analysis is a capability that does not require oil and gas to be relevant. To the contrary, it's extremely transferable. It's the kind of thing you can put in a suitcase and take to other places because there's so many other places that are analyzing complex data, and they need people that know how to do that. So we need to be talking about capability. Capability transcends industry. Hard skills anchor us in industry. We need to look at relationship building. Now, I use this term deliberately, and it's very different than networking. And here's the differentiation. And some of you may have experienced this. You know, any of you that have been trying to network may have encountered people that don't respond to you. Or maybe they respond to you once, but they don't respond twice. So I can tell you what it feels like on the other side of the conversation. Commonly, this is someone that you haven't talked to in a while. maybe it's several months, might be a couple years, might be several years that you haven't talked to these people. Or maybe you don't know them at all and you were referred to them. So when they see a note come through LinkedIn or email, their brain is kind of thinking, oh no, not one of these again. So they want to pick my brain because commonly that's the language that's used. I'd like to meet with you for coffee. And they're thinking, I can't stand coffee. If I'm asked for another coffee, I'm going to throw up. And you probably don't like coffee anymore either. And I want to pick your brain. Well, no, you don't want to pick my brain. You want me to find you a job. Well, look, you know what? I'm feeling guilty. I don't have a job for you, and I know you're going to ask me for one. And even if you say you don't want a job, that's exactly what you want from me. I just know that's what you want. And I feel bad about that. And I feel bad that I feel bad if I say no, because I've been there. I know what it's like to be looking for work and trying to get a coffee meeting and not being able to. And that makes me feel bad. And then if I meet with you, I'm going to feel bad because I know I don't have a job for you, and it makes me feel bad. And then you're going to want me to introduce you to somebody else, and I don't want to do that to them because they're going to feel bad too. And I don't want my friends to feel bad. And this whole thing is just making me feel bad. I just can't get away from this. And so I'm laying awake at night feeling bad. And you made that happen. Well, I'm feeling really lousy now. And I know this sounds ridiculous, but these are the conversations that I've had. So we need to change the dialogue from this coffee concept to actually building a relationship. So what's happened is network conversations have become a transaction. So if you're the person I want to talk to, I come to you and you're like an ATM to me. So inside you, the ATM, is someone I need to know, something I need to know, a job that I want, or some information that I need. It's one of those four things. And the ATM card shows up as a coffee, tea, water, whatever you're drinking. And I stick that in you, and then you give me what I want, and then off we go. You go your way, I go my way, and maybe we'll talk again, but maybe not, and frankly, probably not. It's a transaction. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't want to be part of that transaction. I was delivering a talk at the Manpower Group last year, and I told them, and I'll tell you, if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, feel free to do that. You're not going to get offers for timeshares, life insurance, nothing wrong with either of those for anybody that likes them. Or you're not going to get me selling you Amory spray bottles. It's not about me selling you stuff. I'm happy to accept the invitation. If there's someone in my network that you think might be helpful to you in your search, by all means, let me know, and I'd be happy to introduce you. By the way, I'm not going to introduce you if you and I don't know each other. So we're going to have to invest some time in me knowing you before I introduce you to somebody else. Because when they ask me, who is this guy or gal, I need to have an answer. And it has to be more than you just sending me a note saying, would you introduce me? Hopefully that makes sense. So this fellow asked me, will you, I want to meet with you after this session in your office, and I'd like you to share with me your network. So really what he wanted was a spreadsheet, an exported list of my 6,700 connections on LinkedIn. And I said, no, I won't do that. And he said, well, you just said you'd do that. And I said, no, I didn't say that. But let's just say for the sake of fun that I did, and you had all those names and contact information. And let's say you reached out to them, to one of them, and said, hi, you don't know me. Richard said I should reach out to you and you'd help me find a job. Well, the first thing that would likely happen is the person might just as easily said, well, who's Richard, first of all? And secondly, who are you? And why would you think I can find, I don't know anything about you. That's if it ever got to them, if you did this through LinkedIn. If the person you're reaching out to doesn't have a reason or a connection to you, the likelihood they'll respond is just about zero. So I invest time in teaching people how to build a relationship. When you build a relationship, for the record, the relationship's for life. It's not for as long as it's convenient or useful to you. It's for life. And if you're not prepared to invest in that, you're doing it wrong. And some of you may be thinking, okay, Richard, you got 6,000 connections. How can you possibly stay connected to 6,000 people? We'll take that offline. If you really want to dig into it, I'm happy to do that. But for now, I'm going to invest. I want you to think about investing time and building relationships. So when we're looking at this marketing collateral, when we're looking at building a narrative, we're really looking at building a business case for someone to talk to us. We need to be thinking about how we need to show up, the kind of brand that we need to establish, so that when people are looking for a solution that aligns with our capabilities, our name is coming up in conversation. So you'll see those questions at the bottom. Who don't I know? So the full question is, who don't I know right now that I need to know to help me with this career change? Who doesn't know me that needs to, that can help me with this career change? These are critical components because, well, you've heard this saying before, you alone can do this, but you can't do it alone. And I've had people say, just watch me. And I appreciate the determination and bravado that comes from that. I'm suggesting that this whole journey is a hell of a lot easier if you reach out and accept the help that's available to you. And I know for a lot of folks, this is tough. I have lots of people that have told me when anyone in my network needs a hand, I'm the first one there and saying, what can I do? And I will never show up when someone's ready to ask, when someone's asking me, what can I do for you? I just don't ask for help. Excuse me. So this is a time when if someone's extending a hand, take it. Don't be a hero. You don't get extra points and you don't get a better outcome because you did this all by yourself. When you moved from diapers to pull-ups, that was the last time it mattered that you did it all by yourself. We want to be thinking about, so this concept of, if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one there to hear it, does it really make a sound? If I've actually done something in the course of my career, but nowhere in my marketing collateral or in my narrative can it be found, how the hell would anyone know? And a lot of people think, well, I worked hard. I did a really good job. I showed up every day. People could really count on me. If something was broken, I'd be the guy that fixed it. If a project was off the rails, talk to me and I'm the person that can get it back online. But that's not what's in their narrative and it's not what's in their marketing collateral. So how would anyone know? So we need to get better at building this narrative that really talks about what those things are. And I'm going to bring that sheet up and once I get through these slides, so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm happy to share that document with you if it would be helpful for you to build yours. And if you want to build it and want me to have a look at your narrative, I'm happy to do that too. The fourth pillar is this concept of campaign strategy and execution. So it is very much a strategic process. You need to have a plan. Fundamentally, you need to have a marketing plan. You got an idea, a product, it's you, and you need a plan to get it to market, which is the client or company that's going to hire you to do this work. Excuse me. It starts with identifying the solutions that you provide. Solutions can show up as consulting services that you provide, or it would show up as job titles that you're prepared to compete for. If you're thinking, well, I don't know what that is, or I don't know what I want, or I'm not sure how to figure that out, that's a separate conversation. Happy to do that. But you need to be able to identify the options, yes, brackets S, that you're pursuing. You need to name them. As I said earlier, they're not real, they're not attainable. You can't achieve them if you can't say them. They don't even exist. And then we have marketing collateral that aligns with that. But as you identify the options you're thinking about, the next thing you think about is the where. Where exactly would I like to do that kind of work? Now you might think, well, why would I target a company like Benevity? Because they're, the new tech darling in Calgary. They're was it a $1 billion company? I understand they just got a major injection of cash. They're sort of the WestJet of the tech world. If I was interested in that, why would I put that company down? Because they have no idea who I am. I don't know anybody who works there. They don't have any openings that I would qualify for. Why would I put them on my list of potential employers? Well, simply because if you can't name the target, you can't hit the target. if you look at your marketing plan and there is no list, there's no target market, i.e. employers or clients, then you can't hit them. You can't land anything. You can't hit what you can't see. And so that's a critical piece. From there, then we start looking at, well, in what way am I connected to these organizations? And what do I know? Well, two things really. What do I know about the organization and their business that speaks to some of the things that relate to my capabilities? Then I look at who do I know that can help connect me to people that could give me some more information and insight about what their key drivers are, what kinds of challenges they may be encountering, again, that align with what I do really well. And fundamentally, I can tell you as a hiring manager, when I'm looking at bringing on new talent, when I've been in those roles, if I had an option of going through 50 resumes of people I've never met before, or looking at the resume that was given to me by an employee or a colleague or someone in my network, door number 2 was the one I went to 100% of the time. Is there a possibility I was missing out on some great talent of those other resumes that I have people I didn't know? You bet there is. But I trust the people that are making recommendations to me because they know who I am. We have a working relationship of some form, and which means they have my best interests at heart and I have their best interests at heart. And lots of employers feel that way when they look at this mass of resumes being submitted online and have an option of looking at people that they know or people that are referred to them. It's generally door number 2 that they're looking for. As you're thinking about career change now, you need to be preparing for the conversations that take you there. So if I'm actively looking for work, one of the things I'm spending time on every week, no exceptions, is interview preparation. And I'm adopting the language of the industry or sectors that I'm targeting. I'm being careful about my language so as not to remind people I'm not from around here. Now, if I had an interview in South Carolina or Atlanta, Georgia tomorrow afternoon, it'd be pretty obvious to everybody in the room that I wasn't from around there, just as it would be pretty obvious to me that they're not from around here. But a lot of us do the same thing. When we come from a sector, example, oil and gas, and we're going into something completely different, if we're using terminology and language that is not used by the people we want to work with, we're reminding them that we're not from around here, that our experience comes from someplace else that has really not very little to do with the sector we're targeting. Don't remind people you're not from around here. It doesn't help. And it's not accent stuff, by the way. It's terminology. We need to understand the recruitment process in all of this. And when you look at changing careers, changing your trajectory, it's really important that you invest more time in building relationship and more time in building new relationships that help make connections. And you're going into 3 kinds of connections: people who are influencers, people who are connectors, people who are decision makers. If you're counting on an applicant tracking system to help you make a career change, that's not going to help. Their job, the algorithm's job, is not to find highly qualified people from other industries, particularly the oil and gas sector, and help find them a job. That is not their job. The algorithm's job is to screen you out. The only reason they pick you up is if you have content that relates to the specific position. HR's job is to find reasons not to talk to you, because they can't manage their lives and their jobs if they're talking to 300 people per assignment. Ultimately, it's the decision makers that we need and want to be talking to, and so we need to have a strategy that gets us there. And that's part of understanding how recruitment works. The negotiation piece, that's probably content for another day, and we'll talk more about that, aligned with objections and managing relationships. The last piece, and we'll spend just very little time here, is onboarding. This is a process that you need to own to ensure your success. And it's doubly important when you're transitioning from a different sector into a new one. It's critically important that you understand the key metrics of the sector you've moved into in order for you to be successful. Okay. I just want to bring up this other document, if I may, quickly. Brianne, are we still okay for a minute?
Yeah, we're booked until 2 o'clock. So
all right, okay.
Maybe
So
while
bear
you're
with me
reading
here.
the other document, we can encourage people to ask any questions that they have. It takes a little bit of time for them to type them in.
Okay. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that down. Okay, why can't I not see my document? Sorry. For reasons I can't describe, it won't come up for me. So I'm going to just walk you through it. So in the context then of building a narrative, first thing you want to do is build a scope statement. So what's a scope statement? A scope statement is a paragraph that will sit right beneath your name and contact information on your resume. And it's a profile statement, a summary of who you are. And so it's broad reaching. Now we get into the individual roles. So when you look at each individual role as it resides on your resume, right beneath the job title will exist this paragraph that I call scope statement. It is 3 to 4, maybe 5 lines, 2 or 3 sentences that describe what you had your arms around in that role. And it replaces the laundry list of bullet points that you may be using now to describe your responsibilities. Remember, the reader doesn't need you to tell them what you were responsible for. Generally, if you're going to report to someone that manages that job that you want, they already pretty much know what you were doing in your last job just by reading your job title. These are not stupid people, and we need to not treat them like they're stupid. Then what we need to do is develop an achievement or an impact statement, or a few of them, for each role we've had. Once you tell me what you had your arms around, tell me then what you did with those accountabilities. And the impact comes across as challenge, action, results. So what was the challenge you faced? What action did you take? And what was the result of it? And I'm looking here for measured outcomes: improved, increased, decreased, mitigated, eliminated, whatever it is. Percentages, dollar values, time. There's some metric of success. And while you may not have an achievement or an impact statement for every accountability, you will have some for some of them. And you will have outcome or impact statements for every role you've had. And if you think, well, no, that's not true, I'm telling you it is true. And I dare you to prove me wrong. I welcome the opportunity to have that conversation. You can do your level best to convince me that you didn't actually achieve anything in that role. And I'm going to show you exactly where and how you did. And I'm going to help you measure it. But this is the kind of content that is really engaging for the listener. And the reader. This is the stuff that makes them think, here's somebody who understands the wake they've been leaving behind, the impact that they've been having as they've been working through their career. Then we want to compose a learning statement. What did this job teach you? What are you walking away from with, what are you walking away with in terms of learning from the positions that you've held? And you want to be able to express that in a way that engages the listener. I can tell you as a hiring manager, I can tell you as an executive coach, leaders don't hear this. they would be blown away by someone that could say, well, one of the things that I learned in that role was this, and here's how I'm using it today. I mentioned in an interview that I actually had, what was it, about 4 weeks ago? And I talked about my very first leadership role. And I shared a story of what my general manager told me that I needed to do with my brand new team. I had 38 new salespeople, and he told me what I had to do and gave me guidance that I'm using 40 years later. That still benefits me and still benefits the teams that I work with. You know, for the listener, that's a compelling story. It's saying that everything I've done in my career is built on the shoulders of everything I've done in my career. And that includes every role that I've had, every course that I've taken, every seminar I've sat in, and every webinar I've done, every degree I've completed. Rather than what most people do, sadly, is simply say, I have it. And that is not a narrative that's going to win the day. Lastly, we look at education. So with education and professional development, we want to talk about what are the key takeaways? How are you using that learning? So, you know, I was doing talks at with the Haskayne School a year and a half ago, and would meet with the executive MBAs. And in this one session, I asked the cohort, there's about 50 people in the room, and I said, what's going to be different when you complete your program? And they said, well, I'll be seen as a leader. I'll be able to compete for much better jobs. My salary will go up. I'll be moving into that VP, that SVP role, and so on. And I said, I sincerely hope you're right. But here's the two things I guarantee you will be different. First, you'll be $80,000 poorer. And secondly, you'll have executive MBA after your name on your resume. And those are two things I guarantee that you'll have, and you'll have earned them. But I've never coached a leader yet that has said to me, Richard, my life would be better, our business would be more successful if I could just find another MBA, PMP, SCM, CHP, CPHR, pick your favorite acronym. I've never, ever heard a leader tell me that. And importantly, I've never heard candidates tell me what they actually learned in the program they've completed. I teach at Mount Royal University in the Bissett School of Business, and I'm telling my students, beyond your GPA, which isn't insignificant, but it's nowhere near as important as you think, you need to be able to express how you are using what you've learned. I don't care that you've completed the degree, whoopee, who hasn't? But how are you using it? Because if you can tell me how you've used it, you're helping me understand how you're going to use it here and the impact that you might have. Okay, crash course in 5 pillars of sustainable career mastery and the core of successful career change. I'm going to shut up now so anybody that has any questions can ask them.
There is a question here. When you said onboarding, is that accepting that you're moving to another sector, or what do you mean by onboarding?
Okay, thanks. So onboarding, I mean specifically is you land a new job. So whether it's in the same sector or not, really doesn't matter. You land a new job. What is the process you're going to use to solidify your place in this new company? So it is that step of familiarizing yourself with your accountabilities, getting really clear on your metrics and deliverables, making sure you have a crystal clear understanding of what success looks like, knowing the answer to the question 6 months from now, what will you be doing that will say to the leader, I made a really good choice in hiring you. That's what I mean by onboarding.
I'm assuming that would also include some relationship building.
Just a tiny bit, yeah.
There aren't any other questions coming in, so I'll give it another second here, but I will pop up our last poll, and I do hope you guys have found today's session valuable. As I said, we will be sharing this after the fact, so you're definitely encouraged and able to pass it on to anyone who may have missed today's session and who you may think also will find value in it. And if possible, Richard, do you think that we could share the resource that you weren't able to bring up?
Yes, absolutely. So I'll email them both to you, Brianne, as soon as we get offline.
Perfect.
And by all means, feel free to share it with anybody.
And it does look like most of our attendees found the webinar valuable today, and that's always what we are hoping for.
Okay.
At Petra, thank you so much for joining us today, Richard. I think you've
Thank you.
had tremendous information in a short amount of time. So does seem like most people found it beneficial, and that although they are a quiet group today, the questions that we're getting are, can you please share the presentation? So that's always a good sign. On the Petrol MI side, we will be releasing a energy, oil and gas specific forecast at the end of this month. So attendees can watch for that. We will be having 2 webinars, I believe on the 29th and 30th, where Lisette, our analyst, and I will be diving into some of the data that we're releasing. So people can sign up for those if they're so inclined, and otherwise I will end it today. Somebody is asking about how they can get the recorded session. I will send it out after today's session. We'll be uploading it to YouTube, and I'll send out the link for everyone. So thank you very much again, Richard, and have a great day.
You too. Thanks, Brianne.
Bye.
Bye now.